Alexa, open Silicon Hills Wealth.
Welcome back to Silicon Hills Wealth Management. You can say, play the latest update, or tell me about Silicon Hills Wealth Management. How can I help you today?
Emily, I've been looking forward to this for it's a couple weeks now since we scheduled it, mainly because I'm back on the voice kick with OnRamp using wealthvoice for the skill. So voice is back on top of my head, and for those who don't know Emily is the queen. I think that's the right way to say it, the queen of voice when it comes to branding and marketing, when it comes to voice technology. So I wanted to think about advisors of tomorrow. How should we be marketing? Where should we be? Voice is it, and there's nobody better than Emily to talk about it. So in case somebody listening doesn't know you, would you give a quick introduction to yourself, please?
Sure, and thank you so much, Justin. You're too kind. My name's Emily Binder, and I'm the founder of wealthvoice. I've been doing voice marketing and all kinds of digital marketing for over a dozen years, but really focused in on voice the last 4 years or so. And my goal is to help great companies and brands share their voice, reach people, level up content marketing, ideally make the world a better place, such as with content like OnRamp Invest is doing and democratizing finance. So everything's very purpose-driven that I do, just like you.
So I know why you're in voice today. There's plenty of podcasts, articles, videos of you talking about the importance of voice. But what I'm more interested in is what attracted you to voice before, at the very beginning? Because I don't think it was as popular as it is today, and you saw something ahead of everybody else. So what was it about voice that pulled you in? And then once you were in, what was it that kept you so focused on voice technology?
It was really seeing the writing on the wall. So if you look at everything that's happened, trends in marketing and advertising, they're usually device driven. So we go from the radio to the television to the PC to the smartphone to the smart speaker. And all of these times that a new technology is adopted, behaviors change and the way that we reach people changes. The size of the screen might change, but never before had the interaction mode changed from tap, type, and swipe to speaking voice. So that was something different, which caught my attention. And then just looking at the adoption rates of smart speakers growing faster than any of the aforementioned devices, well, when that happens, behaviors change and the money follows. It was just a matter of being early. The idea of being early was very appealing to me.
And are those trends still continuing? Because you and I talked a few years ago when I tried to do a flash briefing. Like that was the first thing I heard you talk about. And I was like, okay, my friends over at Ritholtz are doing a flash briefing. Whatever they do, I want to try. I'm going to try it. And I was consistent with it for probably 2 months. Every night at 10 o'clock, I'd go downstairs, record something, and then it just got hard. And then I just pivoted away from it. But back then the trends were going. Are the trends continuing? Have they plateaued off? Should we still be paying attention to voice?
Yeah, we're still seeing adoption. It's not at as fast a rate as it was at the beginning, which is the same thing with everything because there are only so many people on the planet to adopt something. It can't grow hockey stick forever, but we are still seeing adoption and growth. We're at about 50% of the population having a smart speaker. And the other thing to keep in mind is voice in the car is actually growing not as fast, but very quickly. And you have voice-driven applications. Even if it's on a smartphone, voice is driving a lot of that. It doesn't have to be a smart speaker. Smart speakers like the training wheels of voice. Mm-hmm. But the goal here is to make things easy for people. And you see apps and software and products get adopted when they reduce anxiety or hassle or friction, because that makes people's lives easier. If you give somebody a little of their day back, they're going to like that. If they don't have a learning curve to use something new, they're going to like that, and voice is universal. And to answer your question, with the growth, yeah, it's still growing. Not as quickly as in 2015 when it came from like almost zero, but yeah.
Well, I expected the answer to be yes, considering you've staked your career at this point on voice. So I would hope that, yes, we should be paying attention to voice if you're going all in on wealth voice and kind of focusing your efforts there. All right, so I don't think we need to convince anybody that voice is something to pay attention to. I did just want to kind of highlight that real quick. But what I really want to try to do is try to be kind of strategic with what we talk about and give advisors ideas of where voice can play in and kind of how they can use that as a part of their marketing strategy. So when you think of financial advisors, I mean, I know you work with tons of companies, but with financial advisors, what are the advantages that you see voice having over the other forms of content?
Advantages. Well, from the perspective of the person creating the content, which is the advisor or whoever is using something I've built, it's easier. There is a lower barrier to entry. You don't have to produce video. You don't have to plan it as much. You can do it on the go. And I mean, like compare it to YouTube, for example. When you put out a YouTube video, you're going to, if you want to do it right, edit it. You're going to add graphics, logos, overlays, all of this, optimize the description. Same thing with podcasting. That's with the voice broadcast that we have on wealthvoice. It's really easy. It's really like make a voice memo and drop it in. It's that simple. Or you could, use a nice microphone and a whole situation if you want to, but just having the flexibility to get content out there quickly that is accessible. So that's the real benefit. And then for the end user, hate to call people users because that's what drug dealers call their customers. But yes, we're talking about users. We're talking about software. It's easy. It pops up on a device that's already in their kitchen. They don't have to claw at a screen, and everybody's screen fatigue. So those are big benefits there. You can multitask while you're listening. You can't do that while you're watching.
Can you offer some perspective as like an ideal client? So for a lot of the listeners, they're focusing on young professionals, entrepreneurial people. So as an end client, how does voice from your financial advisor play into how you'd like to be communicated with? Or does it? I assume it does, but like think of yourself as a client. How does that play in for you there?
Well, as a client, unless you are Ritholtz, I'm probably not watching hours of your videos every week, right? It has to be really entertaining if you're going to occupy that type of attention in my day. But for listening for a podcast, it's not as big of a commitment because it's short. So I think that's a benefit. And I like hearing people's voices. I think you can get a lot out of listening and just listening. We are on Zoom so often, and I've found that I do better on phone calls because there's an episode of 6 Pixels of Separation. My friend Mitch Joel puts on this incredible podcast. Highly recommend it. 6 Pixels. He interviewed a woman who is the expert on digital body language, and we'll put it in your show notes. I'll send you the link later. But she was saying that when we're on Zoom calls, because it's really, like chest up, you're missing about 70% of that body language that normally would be cueing us and making us feel engaged and connected because we're doing it over a screen. And the most unnatural thing about it is that we're watching ourselves. Like I'm watching myself and I'm not really making eye contact with the camera or with you like I should be because I can't help it, And we're not supposed to see ourselves while we talk to someone else. That's very unnatural. In the brain, it's confusing our brains. So when it's just voice, it's like, okay, I can do that. That's natural.
One little video hack, and I still look away and look at myself, but I have my camera directly in front of where you are on my screen. So as I'm looking at you on the screen, I'm looking through the camera, which will hopefully play better on YouTube. And then I'm off to the side. So every once in a while I'll check over, but that's been my hack, is to put the camera in front of the screen of the person where I would be looking. So like I'm trying to look at you, but then it comes through as I really am, and I'm not as tempted to go over there. So for the video people out there, that's a little hack.
Yeah.
I still personally love video over just voice, because I think there's even, to the point of being able to hear somebody, I think there's even more when you can see them. But the beauty of video is I can take that audio from the video and then I can run it through the voice as well. So while I do agree that voice is easier, if you have the time and even just the basic equipment, you can make video work as well. But let's go back to voice. So
Justin, I just got an update from OnRamp Invest on my smart speaker. That's
Did
what
you
that
really?
was just now. Yep.
Who put
Someone's
one through?
broadcasting.
I usually run that. I put that out this morning, so it's getting to you late.
It's getting to me. Maybe it's because I didn't check it earlier.
Gotcha. It's a good one today. It's a good one. Talking about NFTs. There's a new fund.
Oh,
that's
I've
out
already
there.
listened to it.
Okay, awesome. So
Yeah.
let's get back to getting, again, strategic. So we know that voice is easier to consume, easier to produce. Just need your phone, note, and we'll get to kind of the logistics of how Wealth Voice works and kind of, giving an audio demo of it. But think of fitting it into the marketing game plan. Let's say advisors are building out their marketing plan for the year, for the quarter. what are ideas that you have of how to leverage voice? Is it a daily thing? Is it, or maybe even what's best practices? But how can we advisors think about where this fits into our marketing? I believe in trying to put yourself in multiple channels. People consume content different ways. So have a written piece, have an audio piece, a video piece, and kind of try to cover it all. But what are some ideas of what we could use a wealth voice skill for?
It's great to add it to everything else that you're already doing. So I look at voice as complementary. It's not a silo. It's not some end all be all. It's not going to fix any other problems that you have if you're not already doing good content marketing and have a solid brand. But it's more than a feather in your cap. It's giving people another channel where you can offer value. And it's hands-free. That's huge though, the hands-free thing, like the ambient computing, that's where this is all going. This is old. I mean, we've been on typewriters for hundreds of years. We're still using a QWERTY keyboard. This hasn't evolved for over 200 years. It's insane. It's almost like credit card technology. Oh, a plastic card that scans. Still, really? Mm-hmm. So with using wealthvoice, with doing voice marketing, take what you're doing and just put it on voice. And recycle the content that you're already making. Let's say you're doing podcasts or videos. You can grab clips of those, put them out on voice. And when I say on voice, I'm thinking of it from the perspective of wealthvoice, which is an app that lets you broadcast onto a smart speaker, very simply put. But you could just do audiograms. I mean, those count as voice too. And you share them on social media. If you take the content that people care the most about or are looking for, and you make it accessible in your voice authentically, and it doesn't have to be scripted, it doesn't have to be polished. It's actually better if it's not. You give them that way to get it quickly, bite-sized, and hearing someone's voice makes you feel connected to them. It's like we are hardwired to feel closer to the people whose voices we hear more often. We know, like, and trust, want to do business with somebody whose voice we hear frequently. Just that repetition, the consistency of it, the exposure. Just like listening to a podcast, you feel like you know the host. It's like your friend.
I think if you're going to do audiograms, you might as well be working with Wealth Voice and have the skill going as well, because it's like one and the same. You got to have the audio file, so you already have it. Why not just drag and drop it into Wealth Voice and push it out to the Amazon devices? When I think about it, when I was doing the flash briefing, which isn't that much different than the skill now, like I think it's the skills are maybe a little bit longer, or maybe there's some stuff in the background that makes it different. But my goal was to try to create something that the individuals who would go, I won't say it because I don't want to turn yours on, but their Amazon device, like what's my news, I would want to be like, okay, it's Wall Street Journal and then it's RLS Wealth Management popping up next, and that I was a part of their daily routine. So I think that there's a lot of value of entrenching yourself in your clients or prospective clients' daily routine if you can. But I will, fair warning, I feel like I'm good at creating content, but it's tough to consistently be there on a daily basis, especially if you're going at it on your own. If you're thinking about firms, you can divvy it up. If everybody took one day a week and they did one thing, then it becomes a little bit easier. But doing it all on your own gets to be difficult. So, but I definitely see there. So I know what I did wrong in the past. What are you seeing the advisors who come to you, or even businesses, maybe not just advisors, the users that you're seeing come to you, what are they doing wrong? And then I guess the flip side, what should we be doing to make them better? What are some bad habits we have?
Bad habits. I think this is something everyone can be guilty of. This habit is not being super educational and instructive when you share something new, meaning, let's say you're promoting Wealth Voice, your skill. Whenever you share it, let people know how to get it. Give them the quick link. I'll see people say, here's our update. Make sure you asked for the next one, and not say, here's the phrase to use. Here's the link to enable it if you haven't yet. Because when it's something new, people need at least 7 exposures of the instructions, especially like adults. We just don't want to read through things and learn it, but you just have to kind of keep explaining it. So, I mean, that's a little thing. Just make it really clear, like link in bio, or click here to enable it. Here's the link. Here's what you do. Here's what you say. Other than that, I mean, nobody's making any big faux pas, because the whole point of it is to make it easy, and there aren't any really hard and steadfast rules to break. Whereas with a podcast, if you say it comes out every Monday and you miss Mondays, and sometimes it comes out on Wednesdays, sometimes you miss the whole week, that would be a bad thing. You don't have that with Wealth Voice, because it's not on that cadence. It's whenever you want to do it.
That's why I don't produce a date for my podcast. They just come out whenever they come. So consistency
Yeah.
is important. But what I've also found is if you consistently produce, even if it's not on a regular schedule, you still get by. So you're gonna get something from me from some point. It might be a video, it might be a podcast, it might be a blog post. You don't know what it's gonna be, and you don't know exactly when it's gonna be, but you know there's gonna be something. So my podcasts just roll whenever I can. So because I that was one of the struggles I had was I was gonna do it daily. A couple months in, like, okay, now we're gonna do it Mondays and Fridays, and I just like I would say I was gonna change it, and I would just miss. And it does feel bad when you miss. For some people, that schedule is a little bit of accountability. For me, accountability didn't work on that. So yeah, I definitely think that the flexibility of just producing when you can is nice. What are your thoughts on maybe not making every episode, if you will, or every briefing, if you the same schedule, but doing like one a week? So like for a while at OnRamp, we were doing Wednesday's word of the week. Well, we ended up doing a daily word over on Twitter, so we've kind of changed that up. Do you think it's clever to kind of do some little alliteration, Wednesday's word of the week or Friday's fun fact, and like at least every week there's going to be something there. It's not too high pressure. It's just you got to find a fun fact or a word of the week to do, and it's not a heavy piece of content. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's great, because when you give somebody something to look forward to that's on theme, alliteration helps. It's memorable. Yep. As long as you don't overpromise and underdeliver, you'll be fine. Like not making a committed schedule. Like I don't have a committed schedule on my voice marketing with Emily Binder mini pod. It's twice a week ish, 3 minutes each ish. You get it when you get it. Like I'm not going to force it, because then I'm delivering something that might be lower value. Like the quality won't be there if I force it. So that's not the situation for everybody. But yeah, the content, like word of the week or word of the day, and what you're doing, Justin, makes sense because you're evolving with it. You're saying, okay, we said we were going to do this. It's not working as well as this other thing. Why don't we just change course? It's okay to change course. It's okay to change your mind. People respect you when you change your mind because it shows confidence and it shows awareness. The information I had 2 months ago is no longer accurate, so I'm going to do this instead. And the same thing with dealing with a pandemic. Like we're getting different information all the time, but we don't say, well, that doctor's an idiot because they had it wrong a year and a half ago.
I would say it louder for the folks in the back, because there's nothing wrong with pivoting and making changes. And honestly, I think that if you make a change and you admit, hey, this isn't what we thought we were going to do, we have a new angle, you make a change and then you keep on with that change, that to me, I just think that strengthens the audio relationship you're building with your listener. Like they see you're a human being and you make mistakes and you're not afraid to admit that, okay, this wasn't what it was. I found a better way to educate you or inform you, and I'm going to go that direction. So I do think making those changes and sharing it adds a little bit to the authenticity that people appreciate, especially for financial advisors. I think that a lot of times we are perceived as robots and we do everything by the book and we're so boring, where if you just admit, hey, this isn't working out, or I've got a new idea I want to try, this is what we're going to do, it keeps it fresh and it keeps it honest and genuine. So I definitely think that there's nothing wrong with taking new data, new information, and going in a new direction.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I had a thought, but I lost it. So hopefully it'll come back, and we'll just keep on working our way through the list. It was something around. Oh, I knew what my question was going to be. Thinking again of using this as a way to communicate. Do you have an opinion? Is it better to view the wealth voice as? And the funny thing is, I say a wealth voice, like wealth voice is a brand. Wealth voice is like Google and Kleenex to me. Like I say, this is a wealth voice when really it's an Amazon skill. So for me, it's becoming the name for this whole space. But for the wealth voice, is it better to look at it as leveraging a way to communicate with your clients or prospective clients, or both? And let me give you an example of where it might be different. I think the answer could be for both, but one way I was trying to use the flash briefing was, okay, RLS Wealth clients, quarterly statements are going out. Go ahead and make sure you log into your dashboard to see it, and using it as a legitimate way to communicate with them in addition to emails that might go out. That's not really valuable to a prospective client. One of the things I was hoping would happen is if a prospective client ever came down this path and was listening, they might think, well, my advisor's not letting me know when it's coming, or my advisor's not, telling me it's time to do your 529 contribution at the end of the year. Like, maybe I should talk to this guy because he's on it. So I was hoping that maybe the communication to clients would be a little bit of a marketing tactic for prospective clients. I didn't stay long with it long enough to find out, but just curious what your thoughts on are. Is there one way better to use it, or does it really depend on the marketing plan?
I say primarily it's for communicating with clients. It's marketing, it's comms, it's retention, it's all of those. But it also can do lead gen. It can help you communicate with prospects. But whatever you're talking to clients about, this isn't proprietary information, much like you would put on social or YouTube or a podcast outside of wealthvoice. Whatever you're sharing is something that you should be fine with a lead hearing. In fact, it should be good information that might convince somebody to work with you or hire you if they haven't yet. So you don't have to really splice it. Lead gen, sales, that can end up being kind of a turnoff anyway. I would just put the content out there and imagine that the people listening are existing clients and maybe some people that might be thinking about hiring you, and that could put them over the edge. But from the marketing perspective of could this be a lead gen tool? Sure, because part of this, I don't even talk about this nearly enough, but there's an SEO play here. Amazon's the third largest search engine in the world. You've got Google and YouTube are the top two. So you're blogging, you're doing SEO, you're making YouTube videos maybe, or you might not be there, but then you've got Amazon. And there's just this total blue ocean. Because if you go on Amazon, and I have demos where I show this, let's search Google for 401k advice or, estate planning or how do I transfer my IRA, whatever. You're going to have millions or billions of search results. If you search it on Amazon, you have 16, 50, maybe 100. There's nothing there yet for it. And so when you create the skill, which is an app, it ranks like a product on Amazon. You're dominating the voice search for those terms. And especially if you're like momentum or whatever is your specialty, crypto, there's like nothing there yet. That's huge.
So I wrote down helping with the prospects and knowing the SEO angle. So I was going to ask you to dive into that. Is there a deeper dive, or is just the SEO play straight, get into Amazon search early and build your authority and be there? So as more people find, like, to be honest with you, I've never even thought about searching Amazon for answers. I search Amazon for product, but not for answers. So eventually people are going to be living in Amazon more and more as it just continues to take over the world. So does the play just to be there now and be there early, or does it find its way out to Google as well?
Good question. So certainly Google is the encyclopedia, Amazon's the mall, Facebook's the cafeteria. Nobody's going to Amazon to answer their deep questions. You're going to Google for that. You ask Google things you wouldn't say to your pastor or your spouse. People type in things you don't even want to see. But with Amazon, because this Alexa device, don't think of it as a device, it's an AI. It's an AI that's going to be in as many possible pieces of hardware that they can get it into. That's the long game. That's the business move here, which is to power ambient computing and to be that assistant or secretary. From that perspective, yes, there will be a search component. It's not replacing, or it's not more important than Google search. Google dominates search 100%. But from the perspective of people are going to be asking Lexi for information, because one of the top use cases of voice is asking questions, Q&A. There's music, news, weather, questions. So optimizing for those questions to be answered there, that's a big play. People are using voice search more than every day. It's more than 30% of searches are done by voice, and that's the dominant AI assistant.
Yeah, I'm embarrassed. I wasn't even. I was thinking of people logging into Amazon.com and typing the question. I wasn't thinking about asking.
That's how I described it. So I see why you thought.
No, I should have been smart to think about that.
But that too, because people might log in and they'll retirement advice. Maybe they're looking for a book, but your skill could pop up because it's listed like a product on Amazon. It gets reviews and stars like a product.
When, as you were describing the people, it's more about the ask. I can think of a handful of times we've asked our device for an answer and it didn't have it because no one's put it there yet. So that makes total sense. All right, so let's dive into wealthvoice. I know you've shared a little bit of it's an app, but how does the app work? What does the advisor need to do? How easy is it to set up to be able to start implementing voice in their strategies?
Well, it's very easy to set up. It can be set up in 30 minutes or less if you want. what you do is you say, we want to do a wealth voice skill. Get us on Amazon. We're going to pick our invocation, which is your brand name, 2 to 3 words. So RLS Wealth, or it could just be called Justin Costelli. It can be whatever you want. And so then once you claim that, your invocation, and I have mine on mute here, it would be Lexi, open RLS Wealth. Lexi, open on-ramp invest. And the rest of what happens is you have your about us, your bios, talk about the team. You can show headshots and you can say, hi, I'm Justin, this is what I do. And then there's the updates, which you upload whenever you want. But once you set up the basics of welcome, who are we, what do we do, our employee bios, that's pretty set. You can change it later if you want, but most people don't. So it's really a content management system that lets you have an app on the smart speaker and send out the broadcast anytime.
And I love the little hack that you shared a couple weeks ago about instead of doing the team, using those spots to highlight other things within the company. Can you kind of share that strategy and elaborate on that one more?
Yes. This is something that one of our customers actually thought of, which I was like, wow, I can't believe I didn't even think of that. But it was Snappy Kraken, and they said, wait, what if we took one of our bios, and you have 5 on Platinum, so they had like 3 that they hadn't filled out yet, and we use it to talk about our newest products or newest features, newest services. And so instead of having a static, hi, this is Robert, and here's his bio, it's Lexi, tell me about the newest features, and then they can drop in a voice recording and say, next week we're launching this new email marketing campaign. And then the next week after that, they might have a different one. They can refresh it so easily. And then from the marketing aspect, they can tell everybody, here's another way to find out what's new. You don't have to go to our website. You don't have to grab your phone, just ask, Lexi, what's new? What's the newest product from Snappy Kraken or any other business? Yeah, the bios can function as a way to advertise your services or your features.
Are there any other cool hacks that you're holding back that you haven't shared yet that we can break first on Advisor tomorrow? Or is that kind of the most creative thing you've seen so far?
That was the most creative thing so far. Other hacks. I think the biggest opportunity that I haven't seen everybody take advantage of is to really embed this on your website. And so just like you show your social media icons, here's our Instagram, here's our LinkedIn. Put that little Alexa icon on there too. Here's our skill. Here's our app that you can access hands-free. And then have a page. Actually, PlanCorp did a fantastic job. If you go to plancorp.com/Alexa, they have an entire Voice Hub landing page. They've embedded all of their Wealth Voice broadcasts. They have a 1, 2, 3 simple step of how to enable it. And it's just really nicely branded. It's good marketing, and having that rich media content on your site, which you update, is a signal to Google. So there's an SEO benefit to that because Google rewards you for updated rich media content.
I wrote down embed and also say the phrase. We don't do a good enough job with OnRamp of having the phrase. We do a good job putting the link in to go subscribe to it or subscribe to it. But we don't say the phrase very often. So I have those 2 written down on my list to make sure that we start implementing more. Get it on the website. And funny you mentioned PlanCorp. Earlier today, I did a podcast with Odaro, who's over at PlanCorp. So PlanCorp is one of my guests, and they come up today on a conversation with you. So I want to go back to, you mentioned you can put headshots in. The devices that I have are just the Echo Dots, so there's no photos. Where do the photos come into play? Are there certain devices that show up, or what's the benefit of adding the photo to it?
Yeah, everything's multimodal, so it works on the screenless or with screen speakers. It works on your iPhone Alexa app. It works on Alexa in the car. But I'll show you, here's how they come into play. Okay, we'll do an example. Who should we do? We'll do James. Okay. Alexa, open Silicon Hills Wealth.
Welcome back to Silicon Hills Wealth Management. You can say, play the latest update, or tell me about Silicon Hills Wealth Management. How can I help you today?
Tell me about the founder.
Thank you for your interest in Silicon Hills Wealth Management. My name is James Warner, co-founder of Silicon Hills. I'm a certified
Alexa,
financial planner.
Stop.
Gotcha. That is
Alexa,
pretty slick.
exit. Yeah, so he's just got his headshot in there, and they put their color codes, their branding, and he records his voice. And so then if he was using this for lead gen or prospecting, he could say, oh, do you want to find out more about me? You can always just ask, Lexi, and hear our latest update about inflation. So that's different, right? That's not
Yeah.
like, oh, go to our website and read our white paper.
And for any
Nothing
of the
wrong with
advisors,
that, but
yeah, and for any advisors out there that don't know James, he's one of the nicest people you will ever meet. So shout out to James, and love to see
shout
that
out to
he's
James.
doing
Yeah.
these types of things as well. All right. Well, I've asked you before of actual steps, but are there any other actual steps that you could think of that we haven't covered to bring success via voice, other than just doing it? And if there aren't, then my follow-up question with that would be, what are the excuses that you hear from advisors that are ridiculous and should not be excuses for keeping people from doing this? Like, one I could think of is, I don't have the equipment, but like, what are the excuses that people say to prevent themselves from doing this?
Okay, I'll give you two that come to mind. One is I don't have time. The other one is people don't use it. All right, I don't have time. Do you really not have time to do something for 3 to 5 minutes a day or a month? It's like, it's so quick. You could do it on your phone. You don't even need equipment. And the setting it up thing, we have plans on Premium and Platinum. We literally set it up for you. It's done for you. You don't even have to log in and do anything. I will get your logo off of LinkedIn and figure it out. But yeah, it doesn't take long to set up. It doesn't take long to do. You don't have to edit it. You don't have to even open in podcast editing software. You can just record and drop it. The other, what do you call them? When people, objections. The other objection that we'll sometimes get is, our clients probably don't use this. Well, they probably do. If you look at the stats, like I've got all the charts on the wealthvoice.ai/blog. Who's using smart speakers? Are they growing? Everyone has a phone, therefore everyone has Alexa, because it's the free app on your phone. Everyone uses Amazon. But do people use smart speakers? Some people don't. Sure, that's a thing. It doesn't have to be on a smart speaker. It's everywhere else. And the older people use smart speakers. There's as high adoption rates in the 50 plus age group, just almost as high as the 20 to 40 age group. I'm not saying the exact ages, but this is just roughly. There's a tiny bit less adoption among that older age group, but it's still really high. It's higher actually because older people really love the hands-free and that there's no learning curve. They find a lot of other technology sometimes overwhelming because they didn't grow up digital natives. It's not natural for them. They didn't have an iPad in their hand at the age of 3. So just asking with your voice, it's totally easy. Older people in retirement homes especially love smart speakers. In fact, a lot of the top retirement management companies have added Echoes as part of the furniture in the room because they keep people company when they're alone.
Man, I don't want to get old. That sounds kind of sad. Your Alexa device is your kind of go-to person for some company, but it makes sense.
Single people too.
I want to bring back something that you were very big on a few years ago. You put it on my map, and then I saw Gary Vee talking about it. And sonic branding, which is like the Netflix sound, the Apple sound, like those sounds that we hear and we identify it right away. Are you still as excited about that as you once were? Is it something that it's hard to implement for advisors and not worth it? Kind of, where's sonic branding on your radar today?
It's so important. It's as important as the last time we talked about it. This is the sound of your brand. And Justin, you've done a lot of really good branding. You have logos, you have swag, you have your websites. Everything's always really well designed and it looks good. So that's the look and feel. And you're willing to spend money on it because you know somebody makes a split-second impression and decides if you're trustworthy, credible, professional. Same thing with the sound of your brand. When they hear your voice, even if it's video, whether it's just a podcast or if it has a visual component too, whatever music goes along with your voice, intro, outro, donuts, bumpers, all of it contributes to the sound of your brand, which contributes to a feeling. And the feeling that people get neurologically from being exposed to sound and voice happens and is processed actually faster than the visuals, 10 times faster than the blink of an eye. So just as important as that visual look and feel of the brand, the sound of the brand is equally important if you're doing anything where you're putting out your voice. Anything where you have the opportunity to use a little music, you want it to be consistent because inconsistency kills trust. So it's important to always have that sonic branding and use it consistently based on one theme versus we have banjo here, we have electronic sounding music here, we have this little tone over here, depending if you have, an app or a product. They're like MasterCard, Visa, they've spent millions of dollars in the last couple of years coming up with new sonic branding that's less than a second long. It's like the acceptance tone for Visa. They spent millions. It goes like millions of dollars. It had to be exactly right.
I remember when first hearing you talk about it, and I went out and created one. So I still have one Sonic brand running. It's on my weekly mixtape video when I do it, and I've kind of fallen off later this summer. But I'll say my little same intro every time. There's a brief pause, and then the logo will fly in, and it has a sound that I just had made on Fiverr. I had some random guy on Fiverr create it for me. And there was like 1 week where I forgot to do it. And I had 3 or 4 people say, hey, where was that sound? Like they noticed that it wasn't there. So it's not like something that brings them excitement and enjoyment. And they really actually, they don't notice that they notice it, but they notice when it's not there. And that was one of the wake up calls. It's like, wow, this really is valuable. And then I just noticed all of the Sonic branding that's happening all the time. Like going to Kroger and checking out the grocery store. When you're done, it does the Kroger Bing. And I was like, that's what Emily was talking about. That's that Sonic branding. That's just, I don't know what it does to me. It does. I don't think it brings any excitement or enjoyment to me, but I notice it and there's a reason for it. So I'm glad to hear it's still important. I need to go back. And then as you were talking about consistency, I was thinking I've probably done a bad job with some of my Sonic branding because I go back to my videos and I had different kind of like, we'll call them shows, like some were with advisors, some were the mixtape. And I always wanted to have a different intro music to each series, to each show. There is consistency. It's always hip hop, but I wanted the advisor videos to have one sound. So that way my thought was if you hear that intro music, well, you know this is an advisor video. Or if you hear a different one, you know this is the podcast. And maybe that is Sonic branding in itself so that the consistency is okay because it's consistency by the show, not consistency by the individual or by the brand, if that makes sense.
Yep, that's fine, Justin. Each show should probably have its own. That makes sense. And P.S., like I've broken this rule. I have YouTube videos that sound totally off-brand. I'm embarrassed, but I'm not taking them down because you have to start somewhere. Now that I had my Sonic branding done, I had it done by Audio Brain, which is, they did Xbox, NBC Olympics, Whirlpool, KitchenAid, Holland America Cruise Line, IBM, Audrey Arbini, OG godmother of Sonic branding. They're in New York. She did my Sonic branding. This was 2 years ago, and I went through the whole process with her, and it was just mind-blowing how cool. And I said, okay, these are my favorite bands. I want it to sound like a little bit like Tool. I want it to sound a little bit maybe funky, a little bit hip-hop, and it was just totally random, but she was able to put it together. That's my podcast intro music. We have different versions of it. We have it on YouTube. We have it on anything I put out. But the old videos, they look and sound weird because they're not consistent with this style. So like I had to zero in on it and I'm like, okay, we got it. Now we're using it going forward. Don't worry about deleting something from the past. It's okay. People are more and more forgiving. You don't have to be perfect. That's the whole idea with democratizing access to creating content. Whether you're doing wealthvoice, whether you're doing a podcast on YouTube, we can go and figure out, here's the equipment I need to buy. Here's how I can get this edited affordably. And here's how I post it. So I don't need to be one of 3 television networks and that's all there is. And here's my clicker. Like anybody can create content now.
I'm glad you didn't delete the videos. Take the SEO reasons away. Just it shows your growth. Like again, going back to our part of our conversation earlier, it's okay to pivot and change, but also it's good for somebody to see, okay, Emily is staying on top of it. She's evolving what she's doing, whether it be the editing, the equipment. As new technology comes or new things come, she's adopting it and she's staying ahead of the curve. Like I recently went back and looked at my YouTube channel. The very first video I used my like MacBook Pro to record it, and it like the audio is horrible, the lighting's horrible. But I just love it because it's like, hey, I just wanted to get started and I just used my computer, and then you can see the evolution of the equipment getting better and all these different things. But yeah, I totally think you leave it there because it shows your growth, and that's a good thing to see. So I'm glad you didn't delete it.
Yeah, well, thanks, Justin. I mean, true and agreed. That goes for everybody. Start somewhere. You have to start because once you make one video or one podcast, you're like, oh, these are the 6 things I had no idea, and I couldn't have learned them unless I had fallen on my face for that first episode.
Right. All right, I have one more Sonic brand question before we kind of wrap things up. I know you got to get going. Where does somebody go get a Sonic brand built? You mentioned the company you work with. That might be a little much for somebody or intimidating. Maybe I have no idea what they cost, but if they're doing Netflix and stuff, it might be too expensive for somebody just getting started. I feel like that's something that you grow into that level so you can improve on your Sonic brand or create a new one. But just to get started, how does somebody come up with a Sonic brand for themselves?
You don't have to spend audio brain levels. Actually, this is something we offer on wealthvoice for our platinum users. We'll do your sonic brand for you, and it's super affordable. It's a few $100, like really affordable. Yeah, we will say, what are 10 adjectives that describe your brand? We did this for Whipfully Financial in Chicago, and on Instagram, it's wealthvoice AI is our Instagram. There's an audiogram on there. You can hear the Whipfully, WIPFLI Whipfully. That was a blast getting Alexa to pronounce that, by the way. Yeah, we have to do a lot of invocations, but the audiogram shows the sonic brand. It's like 6 seconds long. They said we are futuristic, modern, friendly, accessible, intelligent, a few more adjectives, whatever they were. And then we had our composer. We have a composer with the wealthvoice team. He said, here's 3 shots in the dark. Do you like these? Is this on the right direction? And they said, we don't like those 2, but this one's great. But can you make it faster and can you make it brighter? He's like, yep, da, 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 da. And then we give them the next one and they're like, yes, that's it. So now that's their intro music for their wealthvoice broadcast, but they've already started using it on YouTube too. Jen said, oh, this is great. I didn't realize we were going to be able to use this in so many other places too.
I think I'm going to get with you and do a wealth voice for the advisor of tomorrow. So I've got the podcast and I kind of shut things down with the advisor content, but where my path is taking me, I'm capping RLS wealth and kind of not trying to grow that. It's just maintenance mode and everything is on ramp going forward, but also kind of continuing my passion of talking about advisor stuff. So I may need to refine the brand. I've got an awesome intro beat from Niall Bear, which I would want to try to incorporate because his music production is phenomenal. So I don't know if you know Niall, but he makes beats for fun and he's so talented. So I was like, hey man, do you have any beats laying around that have never been used? Can I have them? And he gave me a couple. So but yeah, to do like a wealth voice for advisor type stuff, talk about the episodes coming up and just drop some gems as I think about it. And then maybe I can document and kind of share the journey with the podcast and with the listeners. So I'll be connecting with you on that. So, all right. So closing thoughts. I have one important question we need to get to at the end, but any closing thoughts you have about voice and the advisor marketing plan or anything else to add on what we already touched on?
I would say that one of the most important things in onboarding or in getting new clients is establishing trust and making sure that this person feels good about their decision to hire you. One of the ways to do that is to stay in touch. And the easiest way to stay in touch is to give them a device where they can hear from you. The smartphone's good for that in many ways, but it's very crowded, right? So I think this is actually going to become the slam dunk of the whole business that I've started. It's these onboarding gifts or client appreciation gifts. So we'll mail out the smart speaker and we'll have branded collateral, like beautifully packaged. And there's a QR code on there with instructions where they can scan it to launch your voice app and find out more about your firm, find out about you, hear your voice, hear your latest update. And whether you do this on wealthvoice or not, doesn't matter. But the point is to think about, how can I use my voice to reach people and get my message out there and help them and make them feel good and optimistic about the future or secure in the plan that we have laid out. And we're going to stick to this plan and not get emotional.
And you can do a message like that that's general. Like, reminder, RLS Wealth clients, you've got a plan. We've talked about what happens in these types of situations. Don't panic. And oh, by the way, I'm here. You can hear my voice. I'm watching over things. And if anything should ever change, hell freezes over and we're abandoning our plans, I'll be proactive and reach out to you. So like, it's not like, I think the concern would be, well, I can't tell my clients anything specific, just a general message letting them know, hey, I'm here. We've talked about this. You've got a plan. Let's stick with it. We're in this together. And like, that peace of mind would be huge. So I think that's a great closing thought to end on. So my final question for you before we plug away, and I'll have links to everything so everybody can find you very easily. I remember you spoke at a DFA conference that I was at a couple years ago I think it was in Austin.
Yeah.
And you had walkout music. And I thought that was so cool. Like, I know people have walkout music for like keynotes, but you had it for this presentation. So my question for everybody in this refreshed podcast is going to be, what's your current walkout song? If you're back to conferences now, you're coming out for a big presentation, what are you walking out to?
Yeah, well, are you asking me the question?
Yeah. What's your song?
Oh,
yeah. What's your song?
Justin, that was my sonic branding. Audrey made me executive walk-on and walk-off music that's on theme with my podcast music. It's all from the same sonic DNA. That's what they call it. It's
okay, so
cool.
let's let's throw branding away, and I may have to have you back on another time just to
Oh,
talk
okay.
branding.
So if I had to choose like a
Yeah, if you had to
pop
choose a song, yeah, like what would be the song you would walk
okay.
out
I
to?
know that. You know what? This is easy because I've been really into this song lately. It's called "Have It All" by Elephant. It's like an upbeat kind of techno song. Usually I'll do hard rock, but "Have It All."
Okay, there it
Think
is.
about
All
that.
right.
Yep.
Well, where can everybody find you? Plug all your social. Again, I'll have links to everything in show notes as we do on podcasts, but I want to make sure it makes it easy for everybody to find you.
EmilyBinder.com is the home of all my content, my blog, my podcast, videos. Check out WealthVoice at wealthvoice.ai. You can request a demo, learn more, see some testimonials, see what's up. And my other marketing business is beetlemoment.com. But if you follow me on Twitter at Emily Binder, that's where I'm most active as well.
Sounds good. All right. Well, Emily, I appreciate your time, your expertise, your knowledge, and kind of sharing a voice with us. Again, I may have you come back on for a shorter episode when we talk branding, because I've been watching and I know that you appreciate good branding. You told a story about Delta and how they earned you back with some mileage gifting or something like that. So I know you appreciate branding, and I love branding as well. So it'd be a fun conversation to throw voice out and let's talk about brand. So I appreciate your time. Everybody, thanks for watching and listening. Share, like, all those fun, good things. Go follow Emily. And if you're not considering voice, consider it. And I will be a testimonial that you've helped me in the past. We're using you at OnRamp. I'm going to launch a Wealth Voice for the Advisor of Tomorrow. So if you're going to do it and you need help, you should just go to Emily and not even think about anybody else. So with that, I'll let you get to your day. I know you got a call to get to, so I appreciate Emily. And everybody, thanks for listening. We'll see you in the next episode.